without securing the youth within their own milieu. That's not normal. Also, I spoke about the funds, the joint SDG funds, that is System Development Goals Fund. The funds actually go to already established organizations rather than going to youth-led initiatives. That clearly shows that the UN underestimate our youth, such that even the simple budget for them to execute their projects, they do not even have. Few people in the United Nations have key positions in decision making. It has been reported that only 2 out of 20 people in the United Nations are actually involved in decision making. Also, Nelson Mandela once said, "The youth of today are the leaders of tomorrow." Sustainable development is building a better tomorrow, and in fact, sustaining a better today for having a better tomorrow. Which type of organization we want to promote or secure the resources for the future generation? Those youths are the future generation. If you don't ask their opinion, if you don't consult them, how do you want to secure their future? It doesn't make sense. According to the UNFCCC, a 2020 report found that only 1.7% of climate finance went to youth-led initiatives, which is not normal. Also, a 2025 report found that youth involvement in SDG-related meetings, despite their crucial role in creating sustainable futures, do not go to youth-led initiatives. Thank you, and I strongly stand for the fact that the UN underestimates the role and contribution of youth in sustainable development.
My name is Isoso Ibuzu. I'm a member of the authority. I will start by talking about what the government said. She talked about decision making. As just to remind, the UN considered the age of youth from 15 to 35. In decision making, I don't think a young boy I'll take the example in our country, Cameroon. We all see what is happening here. A child of 15 years old, all his life is drug, alcohol. They want to live life that they do not deserve. And when we talk about decision making, decision making is a big term, because if you have to go and maybe arrange a conflict between maybe Nigeria and Chad, you cannot call a 15 years old guy to come and take a decision. You will not understand what is happening. So rejected. So I think in decision making, we cannot consider youth as being matured enough to take decisions. And I will talk about rejected. I will talk about the UNICEF. The UNICEF, we are seeing every day. The UNICEF is just a branch where youth are expressing themselves, maybe in activities such as this. Entrepreneurship, that is training future leaders, because we cannot just get up and you ask a 15-year-old boy to go and run maybe something without training him. Yes, I think it's important to know that. And also, the UN recognizes the role of youth in peace and stability for peace and development. As growth can be promoted by dialogue, we can learn to youth in general to develop the skill of dialogue. Not necessary to go to the world to be harsh like we see around here, but to promote dialogue. Yes. And the UN have such agencies like the Peace and Security Agency, the Council Resolution, which are those branches in the UN for youth. I think it's all for me. Thank you for listening.
I firmly affirm the motion that the
UN has underestimated the role and contributions of youth in the development of sustainable development. Youth are not merely beneficiaries of the development, they are innovators, mobilizers, and the primary stakeholders of the future. Therefore, their participation in global decision-making remains largely symbolic rather than authoritative. This contradiction demonstrates that their true potential has been underestimated. We have demographic power without decision-making power. According to the UN, there are approximately 1.8 billion young people aged 10 to 24 worldwide. 10 to 24 worldwide. The UN has underestimated because if you find in government areas, youths are they only speak, but they are never heard. They are the ones who talk, but they don't have any authority. Youths cannot stand for a stake because they are the stakeholders of the future. They lack everything, and they say and so on. Furthermore, we have the demographic power. Youths cannot be. Now we call on the third speaker of the
Hello to everyone once more. The UN is an international organization. What does it mean to be international? It means you're in search of excellence. You're in search of the meritants. As the Hannah said, the UN recruit from 15 to 35. If you are 20 years old, if you are 35 years old, it does not mean that since you are youth, it's a must. It's not a must for you to be part of the international organization. The youth is in search of excellence. As we are youth, we need to prove to the organization, we need to prove to the society in general that we have the capacity and the capability of being part of the organization. If you make your proofs, if you prove to the society that you are capable, it is surely certain that you will be part of the UN. So saying that the UN are underestimated, I don't think they are underestimated. Majority of youth around here spend their time in drugs, charters, in courts, parties, all the like. So they cannot just pick everybody just because they are youth. It cannot be possible. It can never work like that. If you need something, you need to work for it. If you want to be part of the UN, you need to prove to the rest of the world and to yourself that you have the capacity to be part of the UN. So the UN gives the chance to everyone. It's just for you, us youths, to prove to the UN that we are capable. So I strongly stand for the fact that the UN is not against the role of youth in sustainable development. Thank you.
That was the first speaker of the opposition. Now we'll call on the
meetings, my dear colleagues. Before starting, I would just like to remind this to my opponent. We were asked to debate on the United Nations underestimated Day and not the role or uselessness of youth in their organization. So, never mind, I was not going to talk about that. I will just proceed. So I started by giving points like democratic power has been minimized, in which I stated that there are 1.2 billion youth in the global population, and it is expected to be 16% of the global population, and it shall rise by 2030 to 1.3 billion. I also spoke about the great barrier between youth engagement in the UN and their actual opportunities. Youth are not given the opportunity to participate, even though they are really eager to do so. Also, as a wise man said, the youth are the leaders of tomorrow. But it is clearly seen through the acts of the United Nations organization that the youth are really underestimated. We talk about points like lack of resources. Youth-led initiatives often struggle with fund constraints. My colleague here spoke about the SDGF, which is the Sustainable Development Goals Fund, which redirected their funds towards already established organizations instead of youth-led initiatives. We also spoke about systematic barriers like complex bureaucratic processes. Many youth nowadays, they try to get involved in the United Nations organizations. They try to get involved in sustainable development, but they don't have the room to do so. The United Nations don't actually give them opportunities that they need. My opponent here spoke about opportunities. She said that we need to prove, but I don't understand. Why should we prove to them that we can ignore what they are supposed to do? Why should we be struggling? Let's take for example a child. We spoke about students involving in chapter and so on. But do you really think that if they have the opportunity, they will be in that kind of life? If they get the opportunity from the UN, they will surely be working in sustainable development, getting money or getting funds for their youth initiative, but nothing. We are just here static, and we think this is normal, and this is the kind of thing that you're trying to make us believe until you're encouraging it. I really just don't think it is normal. So I, as well as my colleagues here, we strongly stand and we reaffirm that the United Nations underestimated the role and contribution of the youth in sustainable development. Thank you.
I'll start by reminding you about a home definitions because since then I'm not still the United, not the United Nations Organization, because there's no more organization. The O has been removed in 2006 by I don't know his name, but there's no more the O. So the UN is aimed at promoting peace in the world. So the UN aimed at promoting peace in the world cannot be, as she said, they are not encouraging the youth to. They are not encouraging the youth. Yes, and they talk about resources. I will take an example from one of the UNICEF. The resources that are taken to manufacture maybe rice, I don't know, some things for the poor nations, because the UN is an organization aimed at helping poorer nations in everything. So they are taking the resources to redistribute. It's not even for them. They are redistributing the resources, and when they are doing it, they are thinking about the future nation, because I will remind that it is existing since 1945 and now we are in 2026. So I think they have future ideas for the future generation, not only for now, not only for the past, but also for the future generations. So they talked about resources. It's not valid. Also, I'll conclude by saying she said that how can
that definition was going to come with some examples from the Cameroonian context, but there were no concrete examples from Cameroonian context, which makes your definitional challenge invalid. So if all of us are debating and we are giving arguments considering the UN, and you're bringing a definitional challenge considering Cameroon, it's in the expectation that maybe you're going to give arguments with that definition. But if there are no arguments with that definition, there's no need to give any definitional challenge. The definitional challenge is to support your argument. It's not just to contradict. It's to support your argument. So if you have arguments that don't tie with the definition they are giving, yes, you can bring it. Not that the youths are being neglected, is that they are not ready. You understand now? So you don't just say they are not ready because they are terrible students and all of that. But we know that there are youths that are not terrible, and that's what the government was trying to show. There are youths that are making efforts, there are youths that are making, but they are being underestimated. So the government was showing the point, the opposition was showing the point, but there was that lack of those concrete examples to really elevate the level of the debate. So in the next section, that the next round that you're coming, come with force, come with arguments and examples.
You were not attending practice because he was always there. People are always having class, even on Saturday. So you people never had any practice session with you? Never, because you never had time. What about you? You had practice sessions. First, it's debate. The majority of you were losing. Team Angola. Team Angola. Alright. That was a great speech. Favor, joy, and blessing. You as the government brought forward the motion. First of all, declared and made us understand that you understood the motion and you understood the side on which you were standing. That is side government, that is side opposition. You were for the motion. And Noah came, he spoke, of course, set the pace for the debate. And Joy, you came back to blessing, did your back to fourth of the up. And Favor, you came last as the group speaker. Great. So Team Angola, that was great. Team Congo opposition. Jenny, you came, set the pace, defined the motions. Oyono, yes, you came, you did well, and you started rebutting. Jackson, your statistics were great. You spoke and spoke and spoke. Did well for your team. You were eloquent. And then Jenny, you came back as a whip speaker to rebut. So overall and generally, you did great. You were not detailed about your examples. You just gave them and you were really flat. You were not detailed about them. Joy, you were not audible. You were not audible. And you did not come back to restate the point which the first speaker, you came back with new points. That is good. You were to give points which he gave and then start with a new point. And you were not audible. Favor your body movements. No body movements. No stage presence. You just stood and you were reading. Same for you, Joy. So you were detailed. You were detailed. Blessing, good body movement, good management, you had valid points, you stated the points, you brought back points from your team members. But at a certain point, your points were mixed up. Towards the end, before you could finish speaking. And Joy, you used up really small time, your time. It's not really take up as much time. I don't think you got the first clap. So that is, you should not speak for up to 3 minutes. Yes. Team opposition. First speaker, you said the things, you defined the terms. That was great. Second speaker, you were audible enough. You
brought up points, and your strategy was great. You told us what your team members were going to be doing and what they were going to see. You addressed the opposition's point, or you did great. Jackson, that was good. You did not use, every other person used a paper or a book. You did not. Your points were good. You spoke, you gave a lot of statistics, a lot of examples. They were not really in-depth, but you stated them. You were fluent, you were eloquent. Now for the whip speakers. Now I'm not going to do it individually, I'm going to do it as teams. So the whip speaker for Team Angola, that is proposition. You brought up new points, very, very good. You backed up all the points, the previous points which you and your team members had given before. You backed up the points. Yes, you rebutted some of their points. That was really great. The speaker said, you just brought up new points. Like everything was abstract. There was no coordination between your team. You as a team, there was no coordination. And your speeches were not really structured. It's like you just haphazardly wrote the point on your paper and then came to explain the points, but not just explain it because you were reading out your explanations. And they were not coherent. So if you give one line of your point, if you give one line of your point, you just start speaking about another thing, even in the explanation of that same point. But overall, it was a good and a great rating for round 1 for Team Congo, Angola, and Team Congo. So that was great. Any of you public speakers? Just you. Yes, of course. Before you leave.
Yeah. Okay. That was good. Yeah. See the energy in your voice now. That's what you listen. Madam, I know that the Aron participate not the first thing. So when you are debating, second thing to solve your LOA problem, the brain is many of you practice one paper, you don't learn the ideas when you practice two sides. Have you ever heard of blurting? Blurting is a strategy where you simply let what is in your brain flow out to see what you actually do. So when I came in, I saw you revising. You're just repeating the part over and over again. Once I've read that part of the time, nothing will enter again. But if you sit down, and hold the pen and say, let me rewrite this part all for memory. Are you understanding what I'm saying? You see that you have difficulties. The second time, the third time, that's how you are learning to do perfectly. When you cannot write perfectly, what do you do now? You can speak. You start now trying to blurt it orally. You start speaking it and speaking. The first time you make mistake, the second time you make mistake, the third time you make mistake, and you very soon able to come and speak as a team. You don't need to engage with them. After that, now when you can now do that, you can now fix problem. Learn to organize your work. You are Jackson. Learn to organize your work. Should have beginning, middle, and end. The beginning and the middle should be leading towards the end. Don't just say point and fast. You understand? Yes. Those who are public speaking, people should run off. Run off. Those public speaking. What do you do? So prepare well for round 2. Long I'm giving your papers.